Monolith, a sci-fi roguelite shoot-'em-up with bullet hell elements by Team D13. Most important things first, gameplay. You can play this like a twin-stick shooter on a controller or with keyboard and mouse, and they play just fine. I prefer the Robotron style of twin-stick personally, and that's what you're going to see reflected in this gameplay. Now, what are you doing in Monolith? Well, you're going room to room, fighting enemies, getting to shops, buying things, and trying to just survive the bosses at the end of the level. Now, there are a few things that can help you run to run, some progression. You do have a currency that you can buy upgrades once you die, and you unlock things the further you get into these dungeons. And speaking of unlocked, you're going to be unlocking different types of weapons, which there are only 7, but luckily there are 40 modifiers to each type of weapon that can mix and match and have interesting shot types. So along with other things like bomb upgrades, health upgrades, damage upgrades, more invulnerability on your dodge, the whole game can be beaten with just plain skill. You don't really need any of it, but it certainly does help against some of these bosses, which they are awesome. There's a certain simplistic elegance to Monolith, similar to the game Downwell if you've ever played that, where you can tell they really just honed in on that solid, standard 2D action. So one of the common flaws of this genre is a crappy default weapon, where the gameplay actually is poor at the beginning and doesn't get going until midway through the game. Games like The Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon, or even the more recent Nex Machina, they feel kinda bleh at the start. Now, Monolith, you feel perfectly capable with that default weapon at the start of the game, halfway through the game, and at the end of the game. Yes, the upgraded weapons are going to help you, but if you get reverted back to that default weapon mid-boss fight, you don't have that feeling of, man, I gotta go back to this crappy default gun and now I'm at a disadvantage. You're perfectly possible to beat the entire game with that default weapon, and that feels great. So now we talked about gameplay, and what is the perfect supplement for good gameplay? Yes, an amazing soundtrack, which luckily Monolith does have. I have to admit, while capturing this footage, I had to play with the music off, which did kind of bum me out by not having that amazing chiptune soundtrack to put me in that zen-like shooter trance. A few closing thoughts here on Monolith. I would have liked to see a few more core weapon types that were persistently unlocked in between runs. Now they do have those 40 modifiers I talked about, which do change how the weapons shoot, but I would have liked to see more core variants there. Also, the game is not terribly long once you get good at it. Now in the end, that's really the only thing I can come up with that's even close to a complaint, was just the more weapon variety. Now Team D14 really hit it out of the park with Monolith. This is not only a great roguelite shooter for 2017, it's one of the best ever made. Hopefully later on down the line they have a little expansion for Monolith, maybe more floors, more bosses, more weapon types. I would gladly pay them another $7.99 to expand on this great game. This has been Deadite from Boomstick Gaming, and remember,
shop smart. Shop S-Smart. You got that?